Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. So just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. We are going to get started. It is 8:30. Sharon McKenzie, if you're in the room, there's some confusion about which mic you're going to use. So please report to the technical table at the back. Secondly, I went around and distributed clickers, I thought to all tables, but people weren't sitting some places yet. So if you haven't got access to a clicker, if I could ask everyone to just check their tables. And if you have some extra ones, make them available to others, because we are going to get to use them again today. Okay. So thank you all for being here. This is day 2, and promising to be as exciting as yesterday. And we're going to have an opportunity to do quite a few things. So we're going to continue to have table discussions throughout the day. We're going to continue to be adding to the Brown map that Ben and April have been shepherding with your input. We're going to be having an opportunity to hear more about alternative approaches to the criminal justice system for sorting people who may be causing harm. And we're going to be hearing from a panel about bringing the mutual learning from the abusive older adult and the domestic violence fields together. And we're also going to be starting to synthesize a lot of our thinking today. So, are you with me? Okay, good. Woohoo, okay. So, first thing that I'd like to... So the first thing I'd like to do then is invite Ben and April to come up, because they're going to be giving us more guidance about how we're going to keep thinking and synthesizing today. So please welcome Ben and April.
We don't have any slides. We are slide free. Free-range, organic, slide-free facilitators. As Allison was saying, yesterday we were inviting you to share your ideas as they were coming up, the aha moments, the nagging questions, the sort of insights that were just popping up. I call them popcorn ideas. Today we want you to start to round the corner, move away from the divergent thinking, sort of thinking in many different directions, and start to apply some convergent thinking, starting to weave your ideas together. So there's two things that one is we just want to plant that seed. As you're sitting through the discussions today, you'll notice that the items that we're going to be talking about are starting to be forward-looking, right? So we're moving from more abstract concepts to starting to think about how do we apply them, and how do we use this information so that we can do better work together. So just in general, I want to plant that seed as you're going through the day to start to weave together ideas, to synthesize the ideas and start to think about the so whats. So we have lots of interesting ideas, so what? What do we do with them? To help do that in a more practical way, the table to the right next to the one where most of the post-its from yesterday are, we have two questions at the top. What are some of the themes and patterns that are underlying the ideas that are coming up? So looking below the surface, what are we noticing at a deeper level that is linking together the individual ideas that are coming up? And then the second question is the so what question. So when we stand back from those themes and patterns and those popcorn ideas, what can we take away that we can actually use to do better work together? What are some of the ideas or some of the potential ideas that offer the most promise?
And I just want to thank people for the amount of information that we've already assembled over there. We have a lovely quilt of many colors. And like to add that this is your opportunity to influence the agenda possibly for the next 5 years in this field and other fields. You have an opportunity to be heard nationally, provincially, territorially, in your regions and locally. So I would urge you to think as big as you can. There's no idea that's a bad idea. And this is a golden opportunity to just shoot out everything that's been kind of percolating along in the last few weeks, yesterday, in your conversations over dinner, and maybe even your conversations over breakfast. So, wholesale invitation to fill up that table as well. Thank you.
Sorry. One last thing too is we would invite you to actually spend some time at the table today and look through the other ideas that people are coming up with. So when you're weaving together your thoughts, one of the things that can be really helpful is just to scan through the other ideas that people have posted and to use that as sort of the raw material that you're weaving together. So actually come over and visit us and spend some time looking at the ideas.
I love our evaluators. I know. Okay. So we'll start with just a little reflection at your table. With all of that in mind, I want you to reflect on, did you have any aha moments yesterday? Were we successful in engaging you? Do you see yourself as part of the community? So just talk at your tables. We'll take, 5 minutes. And I do want you to capture your aha moments, okay, that we'll go over to Ben and April at some point. So talk amongst yourselves.
Keep losing my chair, so I just no, that's right. Don't move. It's okay. I was over there, and yeah, that's right. We're not going to be here for that one. No, I'm sitting on a chair.
I thought you were kind of neat.
Oh, are you kidding? I have long legs, but not that long. Oh no, you really don't readjust. I'm not here for long. All my stuff is over there.
You are worth it.
Oh, thank you. I can put my legs out without killing myself. I actually went to have a glass of water, and I can't lift that thing. Oh. What? He told me it wouldn't be. No, he told me that they said they would take care of it totally. It's off. You're good. How long has it been on?
Like it was just about nothing. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you have a couple of minutes left. Make sure you capture at least a couple of ideas that you've talked about on your little sticky notes now. This is the action moment. Put it on the sticky notes and then take it over to the table at your leisure. So a couple more minutes. No, I think it'll be all right. Okay, so I'll get you to come bring your attention back. So I hope you had a good night's sleep and you feel good to go. We've got a full day ahead of us again. And there's an adventure in every part of the day. Okay. And look I can see sticky notes being produced. It makes our hearts sing when we see the sticky notes happening. Excellent, thank you. Okay. So I'm going to come back to, where we sort of started yesterday in talking about the ecological model and the idea that we just can't be looking at abuse and neglect as a situation between individuals, right? That there's a whole lot more packed around it. One of the things that I'm particularly interested in is, we're trying to figure out ways to talk about these things, to open up discussions. And so at the end of the day today, when you're filling out your evaluation forms, they have evaluation forms, right? Okay, when you have your evaluation form, it would be good to hear from you whether you think whether we engaged you, sort of around this, whether this makes sense to you, whether you think this is a way we can start to talk about these things. Because it really is a period of kind of experimentation and learning, and each time we're with people, we hear from people, and then we change, we modify, we adapt. And so we're constantly learning, and that's really what we want to do, is create these environments where we're all learning all the time, because it's amazing, the things that we can do together. So, we spent a lot of time yesterday focused on the individual, and we talked about Carla and the problem of, blaming her for the situation. And right now I'm going to focus a little bit on what happens when we look at the individual in terms of Michael, and if we just stay right there, that it's easy to judge his behavior and to, feel that he's different from us, right? That he's different because he is behaving that way. So I said yesterday, abusive behavior is quite common in our society. I think we're very tolerant of it. If you listen to lyrics, I am at a point in my life now where there are things I have to turn off because I can't take the violence in the songs. And I think, wow, it's amazing this time we're living in when sex and violence in particular have been put together so routinely, so mainstreamed into our culture, that we're training our children that these things go together, that make me feel heartsick. And so I think we're going to have to be really diligent and brave about finding ways to speak to this and remind people, as Beatrice said yesterday so well, you know, that we are people with hearts, and that we're not born violent, and that, you know, people in trouble, people get into trouble for all kinds of reasons. But, you know, these are all our people. We are our people. We need to figure out how to support each other and how to really fulfill our potential. And I think often it's the people who get pushed out to the margins who have the most to teach us, because they're less invested in maintaining the status quo. So those are the people we need to be looking to for leadership and finding ways to listen and learn from kind of multiple perspectives. So I want to focus for a little bit on Michael, because we've been sort of thinking about how to talk about abusive behavior that's so common, that Michael would be able to do the things that we saw in the video and say, you know, I'm not doing anything. My mother, you know, wants me to be here. So how can we help people be a little more conscious about their own ways of being? So one of the things that we learned early in this program is that we have an opportunity, I think, to help people understand what controlling abusive behavior looks like. Because I said yesterday, right, like giving someone the silent treatment is manipulative, controlling behavior. And it's like, you know, okay, like I'm sure I'm not the only one. So if it's so common, then maybe we have to help people understand sort of where the lines are. And so this is a slide from one of the workshops that we do, right? And so we're actually talking about, so what is it, right? So if the other person's afraid of you, right, that would be a good thing to be aware of, and think that perhaps you're doing something that, you know, doesn't lend itself to mutual relationship. If you're making all of the decisions, if you think you know what is best for another adult, and if you're taking their money or their possessions, the thing that we really focus on is what is your impact? Because going back to the you power idea, right, that you are powerful and your every action has an impact of some kind in the world. This follows from chaos theory. You remember that thing a few years ago about if a butterfly flaps its wings, there's a hurricane somewhere else? Like, I love that idea, because it is about how connected we are and about being more responsible for our actions. And so the question is always, are you aware of the impact that you are having on another person? Because we've grown up in a world where we say, sticks and stones, you know, you can say anything to me, it doesn't hurt me. And that is not true. That is a lie. Because the littlest thing sets us off, can, you know, make you feel terrible or make you feel wonderful. So we have to be more thoughtful about how we talk to each other, just at a ground floor kind of level. And to take responsibility for the power that we have, that what I say does matter. It actually does things. So what is my impact is one of the real things that we focus on in the training. So here's a little experiment that we started to do about, you know, thinking about, is abuse, can we think about this as a response to trouble? Remember the continuum that we talked about yesterday, where we asked you to place yourself as a bystander on your sort of general orientation? Are you more inclined to, you know, solve a problem or avoid it? Can we actually apply this continuum, the response to trouble continuum, to Michael, and think about how he may be simply trying to solve problems in his life? So let's have a look. So if we go to the other side, like the solve it side of things, and we look at the motivation and the impact that Michael is engaged in here, you could think that he is trying to meet his needs. He doesn't have a job, he has a daughter to support, right? He needs to solve the problem of not having an income. The problem is that he is applying pressure, using force, if you will, to meet his needs at the cost of his mother. And the situation is becoming more and more one where he is taking control of the household. And the more that he's doing that, the more the abusive behavior increases. Okay? But he's just, if you asked him, he's just trying to solve his trouble, solve his problems. Okay. Let's go to the other side, and let's imagine for a minute that Michael has a sister, and the sister says, I'm not getting involved in this, right? Her needs are, I don't want to be involved in this because it's not my business. This is between Michael and Mom, and I'm not going to get involved. But if she's going to have to work really hard to ignore the situation as it starts to escalate, right? She's going to have to actually deny what she's seeing to herself in order to maintain that position about meeting her needs, to not be involved. And the more that she denies what's happening, the greater the harm that's happening, I think, to everybody in the family. And the neglect and isolation is kind of what starts to happen to everyone as the relationships will break down. Does that make sense? Okay. So we talked about the being with as the piece that we, that's really where we're going. That's the thing that we want to learn how to do. And that each of us has to learn different things in order to put ourselves into the position of being with someone without wanting to either take control of the situation or, avoid it. And so in the middle ground, you have to have the idea that relationships are mutual and that both people will have needs. So both Michael and Carla have needs that need to be met in this situation. Carla's needs will be about supporting her son and making sure her granddaughter are safe and that the relationships are good. And Michael's needs are about survival, right? So they need to meet these mutual needs. And they can engage in joint problem solving, which empowers everyone, right? I think that, I'm thinking a lot about Beatrice's presentation yesterday and about how this is, I think, what probably people actually want, is to feel good about the choices that they're making. And so Michael and Carla, if they are able to engage in mutual discussion about, okay, this is important to me, this is important to me, what are the boundaries, those kinds of limits, then that's more of the being with in the relationship, the motivation and the impact for it that we're talking about. Now, I do think that, and so the greater the engagement, the greater the safety for everyone, yeah? And it's likely that the dynamics in Michael and Carla's relationship is such that they may not be able to get to this place alone, that they may need help. And so one of the interesting things that I've heard as I've traveled across the country is that there's a sort of a mediation field, senior mediation, I think it's called, and I understand that it's in most of the provinces and territories, it's kind of growing up to support exactly this kind of situation. Families where the relationships are maybe established and deteriorating, but not in the criminal, like there's not, that sort of involvement that's necessary, much earlier in the situation. So I think that's a really good thing for people to know about if it's available in your community, right? That this would be something that might help Michael and Carla get to more of a mutuality. It's important to recognize that there are times when being with is not sufficient. There are times when you actually have to make decisions for other people, right? When we first started doing this workshop, I had people coming up to me and saying, I have to make the decisions for my mother. She's not able to, she's not safe, and I really try to consider what she wants, but sometimes I have to make decisions that she doesn't like, and I'm so afraid that people will judge me. And that was what I thought, well, we have to talk about this in a way that people can see, that yes, there are times when being with is not enough, and you need to make decisions for other people when there are cognitive issues involved. And what you're doing is balancing concern with safety. But I see lots of people who are trying to do those things, and it would be very easy from the outside to make judgment. And so I think we have to be really cautious about, leaping to conclusions when we see things going on. That's why it's really important to sync it with people. The sync it conversation can happen with anyone, right? I see something happening, I feel concerned about it, I ask a question, right? What's happening? I check my own assumptions before I start, sort of making judgments. Because as we talked about in so many ways yesterday, these are always such complicated, complex situations that we need to proceed thoughtfully and with a great deal of care. And I think with the idea that most people, right? Most people want to do good for their families, and we get caught in these dynamics that I think get worse. I think that they get worse as we get older if we don't figure them out, if we don't address them. So there's always the opportunity to make change. Make sense? Okay. So here's what I think we should be showing everybody who has funding power. Really, when you look at this, the incidents of abuse and neglect that happen across the population, right, are probably much more the kind that we saw with Michael and Carla. It's an escalating situation, though. But, you know, the percentage of the population that get to the really high-risk situations is small. It's much more if we're dealing with these situations when they arise in the family that we are able to put the intervention and the resources, right? There's so much less at this level than when you wait to the high-risk situation, which is really what we're kind of structured to do now. We're dealing with crisis and after the fact all the time. So I think this is a case for early intervention and the importance of supporting people and thinking about bystanders as first responders, right? The people right around the family. They just need some support, and they will take action. We hear this. We see this all over the country. People will do the right thing because they care about the people, but they need help to figure out what is it that we need to do? And so really that's what we've been doing, is planting seeds all over the country, right? About if we just do these few things together, we can change this. And everybody shares the load. It's not up to any one person, right? And none of us really knows what we're doing and, you know, in sort of a big way. We're all just figuring it out together. So it's okay to muddle along. There's actually a whole theory now about muddling and how that's the only way you can really move in the 21st century. I'm happy to share the paper. So get your clickers, let's have a vote here. What do you think about this idea that anyone is capable of being abusive in the right conditions? What do you think about that idea? And remember, you can share your clickers. If there's not enough clickers at your table, you can share them. Because we have the power to make multiple voting possible. Makes my heart sing to see those little numbers happening. Okay, okay, anybody else? Your clicker's not working? What are you talking about? It's got multiple clickers possibilities. Okay, maybe not this question, I forget. Okay, well, let's have a look and just see. Wow, okay. So lots of us for sure. And you know, I get the no. I get the no because it's a question about, you know, people who grow up in the same home, one person turns out this way, another person, like we all have choices for sure. So I completely understand that. And again, we said there's not a right answer here. It's just, we're just asking you what you think about these things. And I think you can understand all of it. Had something gone, okay. And are we ready to support people who behave abusively? Can we get behind Michael and Carla and think about, you know, what would be good for them? What do you think? Okay, there should be multiple responses on this one. How do you know it doesn't? You get a red light?
Get a red light. Yeah, with a line through it or something.
Okay. It's working? Okay, good.
Excellent.
See, I thought I did. Some of the clickers aren't working? Really? Okay, so share with the people who are. Okay, we ready? We'll have a look. Oh, okay, John, we need to have a test clicker thing. Yes, we do. Not now. Okay, let's have a look. Wow, eh? You know, like I think that, again, right? I love the clickers because it lets people be honest. And I get the no. I get the maybe. And I get the yes. It's a discussion. Okay, so we're going to have a panel now. We're going to talk about, you know, all kinds of cool things. And you get to use the clicker. Yeah. So they're going to ask the questions and they're going to vote.
Because we're part of the group.
Indeed.
So who's speaking first, second and third? Are you and Sharon together?
Me and Sharon Elliott are together.
Okay.
I'm Sharon Elliott.
I am myself and Sharon Elliott.
Oh,
Okay, have 45 minutes?
is she not here? Okay, and who's second? Who is second?
I'm doing my slides and Sharon Elliott's slides. Susan, then Sharon McKenzie.
Okay, I got it. Okay. So, Margaret, thank you for shifting our orientation to seeing the response to trouble in a different light. And this next session is the panel that is going to speak to the limits of a strictly criminal justice system approach and looking at some of the alternatives and the other opportunities. So I'd just like to introduce our panel in the order in which they are going to be speaking. So to my immediate left is Jocelyn Yerxa, and Jocelyn is presenting on behalf of herself and Sharon Elliott, who unfortunately is ill today. Jocelyn is the Assistant Director of Programs and Community Development Coordinator for the Nova Scotia Department of Seniors, working on a variety of initiatives to build community capacity to address the needs of an aging population. For the past 2 years, Jocelyn has led the development of a restorative approach to the Senior Safety Project in the province. And maybe I will just let you know a little bit about Sharon. Sharon is the Sharon that's ill today, because she's worked very hard on this presentation as well. Sharon Elliott is coordinator of the Annapolis County Senior Safety Program with the Annapolis District of the RCMP in Nova Scotia. It's a program originating in Nova Scotia in 1996, the Senior Safety Program. Sharon has led the development of this position and assisted with the growth and expansion of the Senior Safety Program throughout Nova Scotia. Through her position, she is a lead partner in the support and development of a restorative approach to senior safety and abuse in Nova Scotia, and that is what you guys are going to talk about. The next speaker to my left is Susan Ross. Susan Ross was born in Aklavik. In 2001, Susan and her family relocated to Inuvik, and in the the NT, the Northwest Territories. She currently works for the Gwich'in Tribal Council as the Resolution Health Support Worker. Her greatest accomplishments are getting educated, working for her people, and striving to become a better person. I have no doubt about any of that. Throughout her life, Susan has learned from her parents to value our elders' guidance, knowledge, and respect for self, others, family, and community. And on my far left, Sharon McKenzie, a colleague from BC. She is a national advocate for building strong intergenerational relationships. She's a veteran teacher from kindergarten to university. She's shown through her 30 years of on-the-ground research that respectful and purposeful intergenerational relations, which is what she's going to be talking about, improve health, prevent mistreatment of all ages, and build more resilient, age-friendly communities. Sharon is the Executive Director of the Eye to Eye Intergenerational Society of Canada. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me? This is weird. I can't hear the microphone, but this is neat. Anyway, I have to give a disclaimer that I am not a relational theorist. I have been doing this work with a whole huge group of people in Nova Scotia that have been looking at how we can create a system that really responds to the needs of seniors that we're seeing on the ground and front line. And so I'm going to be talking a lot about relational theory and restorative approach, and the work that I'm talking about stems primarily from Jennifer Llewellyn's work at Dalhousie Law School, and also the work of the other partners in our area that have been developing this incredible approach. So I think we're starting with a clicker question because it's my favorite thing. I'm now in love with the clicker. So before we get started on our joint session, wanted to ask the question, do you believe that elder abuse is mostly either a criminal justice issue or a relational issue that could be addressed through holistic supports to families? So vote away, and I'm going to vote too. Okay. keeps going up, so I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Any last? Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So I felt this yesterday, actually, through much of the presentation and discussion, that that people's sense of elder abuse is that it's really about relationships in families and in society and community and in systems. So I'm not surprised by that. And there is also a significantly portion of it that is a criminal justice issue. So that's great. And I love the clicker. So in Nova Scotia, one of the things that we found, we have senior safety programs, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute, but they work on the ground, front line with seniors. They work in partnership with the police and other service providers. And what I found when I started my job back in 2009, in speaking with the 15 senior safety coordinators across the province, is that what seniors were telling them was that what they wanted was the abuse to stop and the relationships to be better. That they did not want to press charges against their loved one that was causing harm or where there was a poor relationship, but what they wanted was help and support to make the relationships better and the abuse to stop. So for me, I'm like a problem solver, and I'm like, okay, we have to figure out something to do, because if right now the only systems that we have in Nova Scotia are adult protection for adults who lack capacity to be able to make their own decisions, or if you're in a care facility, then you can be protected by the government from abuse in a care facility, or the criminal justice system, that we're lacking something and we need to figure out a solution. So called together a whole bunch of partners, other government departments, so Health and Wellness and Department of Justice have been partners. We have restorative justice agencies in Nova Scotia that are embedded in our criminal justice system and primarily work with youth, although they're expanding to adults now. We also work closely with the police, with legal professionals, so elder law professionals, professionals who work in healthcare law, RJ law, truth tribunals, a variety of different legal backgrounds, lawyers. We also have academics who work at the Center on Aging who've been involved. We have a whole host of partners that have been around the table, and probably the three bottom ones there. The Human Rights Commission in Nova Scotia recently changed to a restorative approach to human rights, looking more holistically at what human rights means, what rights and responsibilities are, and they've been doing a restorative approach, so we've been working with them. The school systems as well, the connection between how we work with children restoratively and deal with harms and challenges that are happening in the schools, and working with families. And what we're hearing as well is that grandparents are really involved in the schools. They're really involved with kids, and they're taking kids to schools. And so it really makes sense that we would be looking to what's happening in the schools and connecting that with the seniors' work. And we've been doing that quite extensively. And then lastly, it's the senior safety programs who've been foundational in their frontline work with seniors. So what is a restorative approach or a relational approach? Well, one of the concepts that is predominant in Western culture is that we're all independent, self-aware, reliant, rational people who are primarily out for our own good and engaged in our own pursuits for our own interests. So that's sort of the libertarian sort of, individualist view that we have in society right now. And what a relational approach says, well, actually, that we're not really truly fully independent, that who we are is rooted in our values, which is connected to our relationships with other people and with what is created socially in our social contracts and in community. So that really we are only who we are in relation to how we are with others in the world. So, so what the relational approach purports is that really we as human beings, we live our life within and through our relationships with other people. And so therefore, when we're looking at challenges or issues, then we need to look at those relationships and the benefits of those relationships and how those relationships are. And not just interpersonal relationships, so my relationship, say, with Susan, but also my relationship socially and my relationship with institutions. And so that's how we can look at systemic abuse as well through a relational lens. And that relationships can be healthy or unhealthy or harmful or positive, and that it is situation and context specific. So to restore a relationship, really, we're talking about getting relationships to places where people can be healthy and successful and be well in their relationships. That relationships should be based upon equal respect, concern, and dignity for each other. There are principles of practice that we use as foundational in our work with restorative approach. So we talk about the approach being inclusive and participatory, so meaning that everybody who's been involved with a situation needs to be included in the outcomes of that situation as well, and that people who have been involved really know the best outcomes. It's not for those who are external to the situation to be able to say what a best outcome is for somebody else. That the situation should be forward focused and looking at the future, reflecting on the past, but looking to the future for how we can change things to make things better in the future. Okay, there's some of those are missing. Margaret took some of my principles out. There's also the principle of being culturally aware, which really speaks to the need for understanding our own cultural perspective, as well as the cultural perspective of those folks that we're working with as well, to make sure that any sort of practice or that we're implementing is culturally responsive and based on the values of those people who will be effective. Having responsibility and accountability are other principles as well. So it's really about holding people accountable in a way that's meaningful for the people who are participating in the process. And there's another one that I can't think of right now, and I'm running low on time, so I'm going to keep going. So when we were developing this, we really thought we were probably going to develop a program that was like the restorative justice program that was already implemented. So it was going to be like, okay, here's the case where there's a problem, we're going to refer to it, and then somebody's going to fix that problem. But what we realized is that the approach is really much more holistic than that. It's about looking at the broader context and the social systems and the community and how the family as a whole and the supports and social systems that are there can provide support, and that we needed to look, if we wanted to be doing this really well, we needed to look at things differently so that we would be also, I can't read that right now, so that we can think differently about what we're doing. So it's sort of both ways. Oh, another clicker question. I went through those quite quickly. In reflecting back on the situation with Michael and Carla, and thinking about what I've said about a restorative approach, what do you think that most people would prioritize in that situation? Would it be the mother's needs, or would it be the whole family's needs? Vote away. Oh, I guess I can vote too. What would most people do? This is taking. Okay, I think we're done. So most people would focus on the mother's needs, and I think that's probably correct. But I don't know for sure because I haven't done a whole research study. However, you know, we in the restorative approach talk about the real need to focus on the victim and the victim's needs. So it's, but also looking at really one of the only ways, and if you look at the situation with Michael, one of the only ways to address her needs is also to be able to address his needs. And those are some of the things that we heard from seniors. So for instance, my grandson's living with me, and you know, he's out of work, he's taking money. What I need is for you to help him get a job so that he has a job and he's able to support himself, and then that would make my life better, are some of the things that we hear on the ground from seniors. Now, what do you think yourself that you would want to prioritize, the mother's needs or the whole family's needs? I'm gonna have to go through Sharon's slides quickly. We only have 30 minutes. Okay. Give it a couple more seconds. Okay, what about this one? Okay, so this one is flipped a little bit. That probably, you know, we're folks here who many work with seniors and their families that really see the need for a holistic view. So these are Sharon Elliott's slides, and I'm going to go through them quite quickly because I see the clock ticking down and it's freaking me out, and I want to make sure that my friends have time to talk about their wonderful work and programs as well. So Senior Safety in Nova Scotia has been around for a little over 15 years. They work at promoting health and well-being for seniors and their families with a focus on elder abuse and crime prevention, as well as more generalized health and well-being. They have a whole variety of workshops. They're really, I like to say, I mean, I work in the government and provide support to the programs, and they're like, to me, the best bang for our buck that we could ever get with folks on the ground working with seniors directly and able to address whatever needs come up. You know, they're nonprofit agencies that work in partnership with police and healthcare, and so they're able to really be quite flexible to the needs of seniors and don't turn anybody away. So they're quite amazing in the work that they do. Because most of them work within detachments, primarily in rural areas of Nova Scotia, when we started this work, how we were looking at it was primarily from a punitive approach and criminal justice approach, and there was, like I said earlier, some frustration around that because oftentimes, I mean, Margaret's slide about the triangle where most abuse happens, a criminal justice response, an adult protection response really are focused at that high-end, high-risk place and not at the bottom where the majority of seniors who are coming in are having, you know, red flag moments of challenges that are coming up where things just don't seem to be going well but aren't at a crisis point. And so there hasn't been necessarily a rule broken, which is what a punitive approach looks like. Who do we blame? Is there one person? Oftentimes that's not the case. There's multiple things happening within a family and multiple people and multiple harms. That there needs to be a punishment, and that there within a criminal justice system there's limited role for victims, offenders, and the community, that really it's the court system and the judge that is responsible for doling out what accountability for that crime looks like. Whereas the restorative approach is looking at questioning what actually has happened from the people who've been involved, who's been harmed or affected by the situation, and that's quite broadly, not looking at a senior and at one person who is harmed, but more broadly than that. What needs to happen to make things better? Again, looking to the folks who've been involved to be able to bring forward what they think would make things better. And that there is really an active role for a victim offender and the community as well. And our restorative justice agencies include community members when they do restorative conferencing, and we do as well in the restorative work that we've been doing with seniors. So again, we seek to understand the context and causes of the harm, and not just looking at the incident, but looking at the incident within the context that it has happened. We don't simply focus on a harm doer or the one that has harmed, but ask who else has been involved and what can they bring to the process to help. Revealing where individual harm is connected to broader and more systemic issues. So we really are looking at the policies and the systems that are in place and what's happening to cause harm in those situations, and try to establish a plan that is really forward focused to provide the best way for health and well-being moving forward. So this slide we wanted to show because it really does show the context that the situation is happening within. So all of the things that are impacting on Michael, and not just Michael, but the entire family, because what impacts one person impacts others as well. Okay, last clicker questions, and then I'm going to pass this on. So do you think most people will see Michael taking Carla's money as a crime? So let you do that. I feel like I want to ask the police officers in the room if there's enough evidence they feel like they have a chargeable offense. Maybe I'll do that after the fact. Okay, looks like, yes, most people would think that Michael taking Carla's money is a crime. Again, some people know, and some people unsure. And those might be the people who say, I'm not sure if there is enough evidence for a chargeable crime there. Did she give her PIN? I don't know. And if she does, how does that impact? Okay, one other question. Do you personally think that Michael taking Carla's money is a crime? I give you this? Do you want me to click you? Okay. Oh, is there one more question after this? Okay. All right. We're getting close. I think 86 has been the good number there. All right. Yes, very good. Okay. So most people in the room feel that it's a crime, some not, and some are unsure. So, interesting. One more question. Uh-oh. Did I do something there, Margaret? What did I do? Okay, there we go. I think I fixed, you fixed it or I fixed it. I don't know who fixed it. It's okay. If you were Carla, what would be most important for you? Would that be holding Michael accountable, protecting Michael, getting help for Michael so that he stops his behavior? Okay. Having control over this is not as much fun as just sitting clicking. Just stressful. Is there going to be any more votes? Okay, let's see what it is. All right. So if you were Carla, most people would want him to get the help. That's really consistent with what we see. Okay. I'm going to click for you, Susan. I'll hand it over to my friend here.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning. When I was asked to be a panel, I was thinking of, what could I bring to the discussion, and just thinking about the different approaches that we use out on within our program. I was thinking back to about 25 years ago. Our elders, our older adults, we say with wisdom, when there was an incident that happened in the community, whether it be abuse or break and enter, they used a elder approach where they would bring them to a room and they would discuss what the incident was about, and they would make the decision how the individual would be punished. Either it be through community service or on the land programming. And what really worked was taking them out of the community and taking them out on the land where they would work with the elders, hauling wood, getting ice, learning how to set a tent. So taking those things into consideration in working with our communities up in the north, we work with the Klavik, Inuvik, Fort McPherson, and Sigitchik. So we developed an on-the-land program, which we just completed, and I'm just going to show you one of the programs, which happened in a Klavik. But before we do that, we'll show the grandson video, and that was part of something that we are going to incorporate. This video was established by a group of women in Fort Good Hope, where they were, I guess some concerns had come up in regards to the issue of elder abuse and the abuser and how they can work together to try to resolve the incidents.
Do I just click this? With this?
Trust me.
Brilliant.
I'm going on to get a couple of bucks.
I'm sorry, I can't keep giving you money.
Why do we gotta go through this every time?
Promise me it's not for drugs.
I told you I quit. Why do you always gotta think the worst? My friend needs a bus ticket to go see her kid, okay? Try to help her out.
This is the last time.
This is it? Come on, I know you cashed your check yesterday.
So in just a few months ago in January, we did a On the Land program in Aklavik, and it was hosted by our Aboriginal organization. And I received funding from the GNWT Health and Social Services for about $130,000 to host programs in the 4 communities. And the 3 components that we focused on were learning how to facilitate a sharing circle within the group, and using on the land-based programs, as well as incorporating supportive positive mental health connection to the land. We did traditional methods, working with medicines, how to survive out on the land, and how to interact with one another to reduce stress for yourself. Here there's a couple of pictures where we introduced what the program was going to consist of. We had developed an agenda, but when we got out to the camp, the participants looked at the agenda and said, no, we're just going to go with what comes up daily and talk about what issues arose. So that's how our programs had went within all of the 4 communities. They each developed their own agenda and discussions of what they would like to talk about daily. And a lot of them focused on elder abuse. So that was a topic, and from there, from there we developed more programs for the next 2 years, where we received $250,000 to run consistent programs during the seasons of spring, summer, fall, and winter. Here's just some pictures of some of the things that we did. We did some traditional hand games, which is called Nabachak, and they were just showing that to the participants. Before we got out there, they just shot a moose, so we were able to work with the moose, how to cut it, skin it, cut it, and all the different uses that the participants can use it. And here is just a sharing circle with the participants. There's a group there, they're preparing to check their snares. And we had some breakout sessions that we talked about traditional medicines, as well as how to utilize our community resources in the community, and who the contacts are, and how the elders can work with them. And this is just a mother-daughter participant and a youth participant. So it was a mixture of young and old that participated in the workshops. Again, some sharing circles, snare making. We did a lot of storytelling, talking about how the elders, when they were brought up, they were taught how to respect, love, caring, sharing, versus today, it's, there's no respect coming from the younger generation, and how we can incorporate those back into their lives, and trying to make them realize that some of the things that they're doing is wrong, not just only with elder abuse, but any other incident that comes up within their lives. So one of the things that really helped them was we did a collage on what do they see as traditional for them. So one of the things that this lady had done was how she, her father had instilled all these traditional values of living out on the land, how to use traditional medicines, and using all the animal parts for survival. So that was something that she would like to continue. So that's some of the things that we're going to incorporate in our 2-year program. We had a lot of fun evening activities, a lot of exercise with the elders that they like to do. We also did some fun energizers on the right where we did some fun games. The bottom, they did they made some moose dry meat. So that was a delicacy for them that they enjoyed. And the lady here, she's skinning the moose head here, so she's displaying that to the participants. And this is a group that participated in the workshop. We have our sunset, we had again some more fun games and collage. Again, language and spirituality is another thing that they would like to incorporate back into their programming. One of the things that really came from these programs is a lot of people, even though you come from a small community, they learned to build trust again. And I think that's one of the key components is when you live in a small community, you need to learn to trust one another if you're going to move forward in your life in trying to live a healthy lifestyle. And we use this as a healing program. One of the key factors for the participants is they would like to see our leaders, our chiefs participate in these programs, because you can tell that some of them still have some issues that they need to address. But just to come out to the program, whether just to mingle with the participants, but to see the sense of the issues that they have and how they can work together to build a healthier community. So like I said, we have funds for the 2 years. I just wanted to share one thing is out of the programs that we had run there was the discussion about developing a men's program in regards to the abusers. So we're thinking of incorporating that. So when I get back home, I'm going to be doing our community visits, and we're going to be developing with the community because it's their program. So we want to see how they're going to develop it and working with the men's program, because that's something that's really needed back home. There's a lot of focus on women's programs. So we want to incorporate a men's program as well as a family program unit. So that's something that we're going to be discussing. I think that's it.
Great. Sharon.
Okay, I'm going to stand up because I'm not much of a sitter. Also, I'm going to stand up because I didn't get much sleep last night. I don't know about you guys out in Ontario. You go to bed so early. My watch said 8 o'clock, and I think... It's really kind of funny because my husband was born and raised here, and when he came out, when we moved to Victoria 5 years ago, he was going, let's go up to Lake Okanagan. I want to stop at Lake Kennedy. And I'm going, what are you doing? Like, lake is what they are. That's the family. And it's Okanagan Lake, and it's Kennedy Lake and Christina Lake. He's going, Lake Ontario, Lake Simcoe, Lake Couchiching. I'm thinking, and then it really drives him crazy when we drive someplace, because I say, well, we'll just go down the Island Highway, and then we can either go Fraser Canyon or the Coke. I mean, we're going to get Yellowhead one way or the other. And he's going, well, like, where's the exit for 542/329A? But then I got to thinking about it. You know, if I had 500 or 6, I mean, we only have 7 roads in BC, highways, and if I had 500 roads or 500 kids, I'd probably start naming them as well, and with numbers. So I'm going to talk fast. I hope you can listen fast this morning. I don't have much time, and I've added in something that I think is really important. When I was thinking about that out and back and the lake naming and the highway naming, it's interesting how even geographically in this country, we do the same things, but we do them differently. We have different ways of doing things. And this morning when I talked to you, I had to laugh. Thank you so much for doing this conference, by the way. It's awesome, very dynamic. I've been to a lot of conferences, and this is really great. Margaret asked me if I wanted to freewheel, and I think she and Sherry were probably freaking out about that. I'm going to talk to you kind of like a mind map, so I'm going to kind of point to different places. And the first thing that I want to talk to you about, 2 items actually. One is that the purpose that we're here for, bringing awareness and trying to prevent elder abuse, it's a huge problem. It's just absolutely gigantic. And as Margaret and all of yesterday, everything contributed to, it's systemic, right? It's a huge systemic issue. And isolation being really at the core of so much of that. I want you to keep that in mind. And then the second thing, and I'm not going to use a clicker because I will imagine that 100% of you in this room really care about the future. And I'd like you to keep those two thoughts in mind. And I mean the future not just of your children, your grandchildren, but perhaps even of the species here on planet Earth. So those two thoughts. I was a teacher for over 30 years, and I hate to tell you this, but any of you who've worked for the government probably know that this is true. I was on the end that threw things into a dumpster. Projects and programs that came in beautiful binders. They were unbelievably great ideas, and they ended, and we threw them out. And some of them in my school were not even open. The packages were not even open. The programs were not even started before they ended. And when I looked back on my career, I wondered, why was that? Why did these really great ideas, these really great projects end? And it seemed to me that it was two factors that contributed. One, that the funding ended. We all know about that, right? And the second one, that the person who initiated, the person who brought that inspiration to the staff or to the school disappeared. They either moved on, whatever, took a different job. And that's another one of the little double idea things here that I'd like you to think about. I want to share with you this morning what I think is one of the very best and the absolutely most underused force that we have here in Canada. It's fun, it's easy, and it's free. And in fact, we've proven that it actually saves money. Some of you may know this kind of a book. They were quite popular about 10 years ago. And when you look at it, it's a poster and it appears some kind of a design. But if you put your face right into it and focus and get rid of all the peripheral stuff, what happens is a 3D image emerges that's quite different from the background, but connected to it. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to beg you today, and when you walk out of here, to put on this lens, and I call this my intergenerational lens, because there isn't a situation in Canada that you can throw at me that I don't see how you can enhance that by inviting in that powerful force in our country, the one whose future we're really concerned about, the ones who can help us battle all of the isolation and all of the depression that's here, and that's the youth and children of this country. It's a huge force. And why am I so convinced of that? Because I've done extensive research. I had connected my kids to seniors. I'd been connected to seniors myself all my life. And I kind of thought that's the way everybody did. And I found out it wasn't. And I also found out that by just taking my students or having senior come in for a few moments, or a half an hour or an hour, that it wasn't enough, that we were missing some incredible potential there, that we always kind of left wanting. And everybody was walking on eggshells and happy with one another, but didn't really know one another. And so what I did about 15 years ago, actually, I just did the math this morning, I started a program or a project called the Meadows School Project, where I took two groups. Now, I know that only 4 to 7% of Canadians are in care homes, but I did have as sort of one of my control groups people that were living in a retirement residence. So it was an assisted living residence in BC. And my class, 33 kids, 30 to 33 kids. And we moved into a temporary classroom in the care facility for 2 full months, 5 weeks in the fall, 3 weeks in the spring, with intermittent through each month contact back and forth, either seniors coming to our school or the kids going to the care facility. We did 3 things. We shared our curriculum. We shared our public service, so projects and things within the community itself and within the retirement community, and visitations. And from that, we have now gleaned the greatest, the most comprehensive body of work that has to do with intergenerational relations in Canada. In fact, it has been recognized internationally and by the World Health Organization. So I'm going to show you a YouTube video. It's a 10-minute short of a 1-hour documentary that was made about this project. This project is something that we are trying to get started across Canada. There's one in Saskatoon, one in Edmonton, one in Williams Lake, and of course the original one that I did in the Okanagan. But I want you to think of putting on this lens and figuring out if there's any way, in any small way, that you can look at what you're going to do with Neighbors, Friends, and Families or any of your other programs and say, how can I make this intergenerational? How can I bring kids and teenagers, and I don't mean just teenagers, I mean kids too, little kids, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, into this right from the very beginning and through into implementation and on to celebration and evaluation and hopefully sustainability, because that is absolutely key. Before I have you see this video, I'm going to stick this on myself because I know they're really quite worried about where do we stick things. I would like to congratulate, I was told, you can see I have all my stuff, a real teacher thing, right, stuff. I was told this morning that New Brunswick has got this in the works, we hope. I know in Alberta and in Ontario, the proclamation for Intergenerational Day Canada June 1st, which supports June 15th, we add, and that's what its purpose was originally when the students from Newfoundland and our organization started this, that those two provinces now have private members' bills right now. We should be finding out within the next week how that goes. BC is proclaimed, the Yukon proclaimed on January 2nd, so that's really awesome. We have Saskatchewan and Manitoba, as I mentioned, to start with in perpetuity. So provinces are coming on board. I think Nova Scotia is on board as well. And this day gives you an opportunity to celebrate what you can do with the people in your community to bring this all together and change our future. So if you could roll that video for me now, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
There were a lot of retirement communities that were going up in our area, and they were walled communities. And once the seniors were in that walled community, they felt a security from something. And then I started to realize that the security seemed to be from young people. The seniors were seeing an aspect of children that I, as a teacher, didn't think was very fair. And so things that were on television and in the newspaper that would hit the headlines were never really showing children in their very best light. So as a result of that, I thought, well, immersion might be the answer. And a person who I knew well had just purchased a seniors home, and I phoned them and asked if there would be a possibility that I could bring the children over. So I went over to her facility, and the first thing was to find a place to house our class. And then we went outside, and there was a chapel. I could see the potential. I could see that we could make something out of this.
Well, at first when I figured out that I was going to be going to a seniors home, like, you think seniors as kind of boring people who just sit down, relax, and don't really care about anything.
It might be a bit boring that we just sit there and go,
I think we kind of thought it was going to be a break from school. So I don't think we were looking forward to it because of the seniors. I think we were just looking forward to being out of the classroom.
I thought that we weren't going to have any homework at all. We were just going to sit there in the chapel having fun and just talk with the seniors the whole entire day.
One of the challenges of this project is taking the lives of the seniors and bringing the lives of the children and what they have as expectations from their school and so forth together, to meld them together so there's little friction and a lot of opportunities for building stronger understandings and relationships.
Alrighty, starting now.
And so I've tried to have the actual instructional time in the math and whatever it happens to be I'm instructing in that day, the very first part of the morning.
Okay, here we go.
Well, my first impression when we walked in, it was actually pretty amazing to see like the joy of some of the seniors' faces. Like, their faces just lit up when they saw us. I think about the first week, you were kind of confused, like where to go and everything, but she gave us like the exact times that where we should be, and we basically just had to follow it. And as the weeks went on, it got a lot easier.
In the morning, the children can sign up, and we generally have 2, sometimes 3 children who will go to visit a senior. You have to be careful too that you don't overwhelm the senior with too many people suddenly coming to them.
Well, you kind of have to get them going because they are very shy, and kind of scared of us old people, I guess. And I don't know why, but it's what it is, I guess. And it takes them a while to get used to us.
It's funny because some of the seniors, they'll get this feeling when the children come that they have to babysit them, and they'll get very worried and say, well, I'm not sure how I should take care of you. And so it's quite interesting to watch the children negotiate with them and say, well, actually, no, you don't have to take care of us. We're here to just visit. And they'll go, just visit?
I don't think you've been in the store yet, have you?
Which story?
My little store.
It's really interesting because they'll notice different things about how one senior maybe tires more easily than another. They notice some really interesting things between senior couples that we will deal with.
Today's date.
I can't watch over all the children because they're in different venues. They sometimes in pairs will go with the seniors to their rooms and do little jobs for them, or they'll go to the library, and there's absolutely no way that I can be monitoring that.
There's only one person at the table.
And I don't expect to be monitoring that. I don't think that that's my job. My job is to help the children understand exactly what the expectations are, and then in that gap between what the expectations are and trying to achieve them is personal responsibility.
And I felt like they kind of trusted us to set the table because even though it seems so little, it's kind of huge to be asked to like do something like that. And you didn't have to have any supervisors. Like the supervisor was like somebody from your class. Like it wasn't an adult, it was us. That's cool.
I think it took a week or two to really settle into the program, both the seniors and the kids. In the end, things really developed to the point where I was, surprised. And I can bring one activity as an example to that when we did the Play-Doh and clay activity.
Yeah, this could be.
And I couldn't believe how many people, residents who will not come to my own programs and who'd rarely participate in other things, making silly dough creations with kids, and the room was packed. Again, overwhelmed, but in a positive way. It was like they were just suddenly, it all clicked, and they were here with the kids and enjoying having fun, and it really hit me that day that these things, this program's possible, and it does take work, but it can happen, and it can be a real magical thing.
And it's nice when we get to know them. And they write us nice notes and cards and that sort of thing, and start looking at us like we're people.
They have a lot in common with you. Like they love to play games with you. They love to just sit down and talk. They love to knit and play the piano. And it was just the best experience. I love that activity.
When I started this project, it started as a very grassroots thing, and I'm a great believer in grassroots. And I think that by making small differences in many places that you can make big differences. What I did not anticipate was how big of a difference this has made. I never in my wildest dreams would have 6 years ago realized that we would have had such phenomenal success in this project. I now see that this is the texture of the society and the community that I think we're starting to lose. And if this is a small way to capture that connectedness of generations in our society, everything that we have done to this point is just worth so much.
We all want to build community. We know it's really important. Many of us are doing it with little field trips to get different age groups or culture groups together and interact. Sharon McKenzie is doing it with her Coldstream Meadows project in a big way, where she's 5 weeks at a time and then again later for I think 3 weeks. And then other activities where they interact, where the students really get to know the seniors and vice versa, and they really connect and they're really building community to such a strong degree, you can't beat it.
Pretty smart little girl.
Even without Sharon being on site as instructor, teacher, she has certainly laid the groundwork for this to be repeated here with other teachers from Kidston School or in another situation entirely.
Good morning, senior friends. My name is Matthew.
I think that everybody took a little bit of something from this, from the Coldstream Meadow. Like, it's not just a seniors home, like it's a place where we can be ourselves and talk with friends.
Thank you. Bye for now.
That was very hard to say goodbye to all the seniors, and it was just kind of like, we're leaving, like this is for sure. The whole experience with the seniors is just amazing. Like, you thought like this was gonna be kind of boring because you're with elderly people and you weren't really sure what was gonna happen, but nearing the end, it's just amazing, like the connection that you have with them. They know you, they know who you are. They're not just seniors, like they're your friends.
It's a powerful force. It's a powerful force, and if you don't think it's sustainable, all of those people in the film, the elderly people, the older people, have passed on except for one, and she's celebrating her 100th birthday this year, and we're planning a celebration, but last year, just in case you didn't quite make it, we had a reunion. And my students came back. Many of them now work in the field of gerontology. They work as care providers. They work in the helping professions. You know the people who did the best in this? Over half my class were kids that had been kicked out of schools from everywhere from Ontario across Canada. Powerful. Unbelievably powerful. And I'm going to throw out a little challenge. I do want to say a couple things before I throw the challenge out. There are resources that Public Health Agency Canada and the IFA have funded, and BC Ministry of Health. They're over on the table. They're downloadable free, 2 languages, most of them, from our website that will give you insight into what happened before this all came about. We had some prep, obviously, on both sides. But I'm going to give you, I would lay my life down on this. As a community of practice, as a government, as a whole of Canada, we put money towards youth, towards everything from drug abuse to early reading interventions, etc. And we also send money out to this kind of thing, where we're working with elder abuse and we're working with seniors and so forth. I really believe that if we could convince governments to bring together the young people and the older people in our society in respectful, safe, and purposeful connections, that we would get rid of 80% of the things we're throwing money at on a regular basis and spinning our wheels and feeling frustrated with. They are capable people, and that you is intergenerational. Celebrate it on June 1st, please, and thank you so much.
Wow. Wow. So I just want to, it was very moving, all 3 of you, I have to say that. I just want to thank each of you for the human being approach that you're bringing to your communities through restorative responses, through your On the Land program, and through your commitment to intergenerational relationships. Thank you so much. You're free to go.
Thank you.
Whoa, every time I see that video, oh my God. Okay, so you have a chance to have some discussions at your table. Remember those inspired ideas. So this is our opportunity to start working towards integration and where we're going next. And you have about 15 minutes. So what's the what next? Based on everything, what's promising here and at home. So about 15 minutes and then we'll reconvene.